Hello guys, today I will scaling Naraka 0, so let's start scaling Naraka 0. Let's start with the cosmology. The world of Naraka is essentially an entire universe that has been contaminated by a very strange law called Amrita. This law is not just energy or a simple ability. It is something that changes the very nature of existence itself. Anyone infected by Amrita becomes an immortal being, but not the kind of immortality people usually think of. It is a cursed immortality. The person cannot die under any circumstances. Even if they are cut apart, burned, or reduced to atoms, they still do not die. At the same time, they continue to age and get sick normally, with no regeneration ability, meaning they are trapped in a constant state of suffering with no escape. Even death itself has been stripped away from them as a concept, as if it has been stolen. This turns life itself into a terrifying burden. So who is responsible for all of this? This is where Mono comes in, who is Naraka itself. He is not an ordinary being. He is closer to an incomprehensible concept, something beyond understanding. Yet he is treated like a god of the path of domination, as he managed to impose the law of Amrita over the entire universe and overwrite it completely. As a result, everything now operates under this strange law, which led to a massive catastrophe where the entire universe was engulfed in an all-out war due to its effects. With the spread of Amrita, a huge number of individuals began to emerge with abilities that conventional science cannot explain. This is ironic because the civilization there was already scientifically advanced to the highest degree, having expanded its reach into outer space, and they originally had no concept of magic or supernatural powers at all. They relied purely on science. Suddenly, however, they found themselves in a reality where the laws had been broken and impossible phenomena began to appear, creating a massive contradiction between extreme scientific advancement and a reality that had become completely incomprehensible due to the law of Amrita, which turned the entire universe into a kind of existential hell. The effect of this did not remain limited to individuals. It reached the very essence of beings themselves. All creatures became direct embodiments of Naraka's strange laws. This created a terrifying contradiction. Within a single entity, one being could simultaneously embody true immortality in its absolute sense, being impossible to kill in any way and at the same time embody perfect death, a concept that is supposed to end all existence. Yet both exist within the same being without canceling each other out. Similarly, the idea of eternal paradise exists, but in a distorted form rather than being peace or bliss. It becomes closer to an eternal prison with no escape, a fixed state of existence regardless of how painful it is. As a result, beings are no longer just living entities. They have become living manifestations of contradictory concepts at the same time. Life and death, immortality and annihilation, comfort and suffering. All of this is the result of Amrita not only altering physical laws, but breaking the very concepts themselves and embodying them within beings in an illogical way. In Naraka, existence itself becomes a walking paradox. Here continues along the same strange logic of Naraka. Change is not about erasure and starting from zero. Rather, it is closer to continuous development. Anything old does not disappear. Instead, it takes on a new, higher form and concept, as if it is being elevated to a higher level without losing its original essence. So instead of replacement, there is accumulation, and this accumulation creates layers upon layers. Each layer contains greater power, awareness, and meaning than the one before it. This makes existence itself in a state of constant ascent, as if it is always evolving upward. Even if something's external form changes drastically, its original root still remains inside. Only now it is developed and enhanced. It is exactly like renovating an old building. You may change the walls, the roof, and every detail, but the foundation is still there, and everything new is built upon it. Or like a painting being repainted many times, each layer of color adds new depth, but the old layers are still hidden inside and influence the final result. So Naraka operates on this same principle. It does not erase existence. It reconstructs it on top of itself. Every cycle is not an end, but an upgrade of the previous version. This makes transformation not a break, but an evolving continuity, as if life itself performs an existential and spiritual update, preserving everything that came before, but in a stronger and deeper form. This explains how that universe, continues to rise in power and complexity without losing its roots, in fact. The roots themselves become stronger with every new layer. The universe is actually Outerversal. And I'll explain why, not making this up. This is based on logical reasoning and scans. Transcendence of dimensions. The scan states that the land of origin or coordinate of origin is a point that conventional science cannot explain, and it predates the throne system. This means it's the point from which dimensions, time and space originate, while itself existing outside their framework. Anything like that would be classified as an Outerversal foundation. Fundamental law overriding. The scans mention that the nature of existence in Naraka is fundamentally different from our laws. It's not just power. It's an entirely different stage of existence. When a universe itself is a law, Amrita, that defines reality and erases core concepts, like life and death, then it moves beyond spatial dimensions into the realm of concepts. Transduality. Type 3. The ability of the universe to contain death and non-death, heaven and hell simultaneously, without logical collapse means that its structure transcends binary logic. A cosmology that breaks the rule of a cannot be B at the same time qualifies as Outerversal, since it is not bound by conventional logic. Qualitative layering. The text mentioning that Magsarion, a divine being, was fragmented and began to be reshaped into something else just by glimpsing Naraka, proves that higher layers of existence have ontological priority, meaning higher layers don't just overpower. Lower ones, they redefine them. Now, let's scaling Avatar Naraka. Naraka in singularity. Naraka here surpass high transcendent plus in tier PSW. I'll explain how after a long review. High 1T plus refers to ontological perfection, Taiji, and unity that encompasses multiplicity. However, Naraka in the scans is not a perfect or balanced entity. It is described as a hole, a hell, and a bottomless abyss. High Transcendent Plus still deals with the idea of identity, absolute self-identity. But Naraka is the void that tears through the fabric of existence itself. It doesn't contain existence as a complete painting. It is the hole in the painting. And here we reach the true domain of Naraka and its uniqueness. First, what is a pyrrhon? A pyrrhon means non-differentiation, beyond distinction. A pyrrhon transcends the non-differentiation found in ontological perfection. In Naraka, the whole is described as something completely different. It pierces through the fabric, reality. It is also the source of thought and existence, because above Taiji, the source of all knowledge and power, its touch causes the impossible to disappear. This aligns with Apeiron as being the origin of everything, including thought itself. We also have the transcendence of the law of identity. The scans state that Naraka is not subject to laws of stronger, weaker, or any known human or divine logic. It is a singularity that gazes into the void. This is literally an absolute transcendence of definition, description, and limitation. Conclusion. The singularity of Naraka. Tier 0, Apeiron. Reason. Because it is the origin that precedes cosmology, and it is the whole that is not tied to existence. It embodies a state of absolute self-sufficiency, to the point that Mithra had to create an entire system, the throne, just to handle its overflow. It is a pyrrhon, because it is the infinite that precedes even the concept of perfection. Naraka is not connected to the world or even to singularity itself. Even Mags, the loader, could not withstand Naraka's existence, so he was erased and reformed again with a different identity. This erasure is different from the primitive Hadu gods like Sirius, because when they erase something, they do it through will and power. However, Naraka erased him in a way that cannot be described, in a way that transcends all descriptions, all assumptions, and all words in the literal sense. Thus, Naraka transcends principles and laws in an absolute manner. Now, true Naraka or mono, the depth of the whole is in accordance with the strength of the divinity, of the throne in that generation. And when Mercury held the throne, it was at most a depth that an ordinary person could reach in the time it took to hold his breath. Based on this, the current depth at which the sixth heaven Hajanis sitting on the throne is a depth that cannot be reached even though it has been falling for a long time. The fact that he sits in the ultra-deep depths that cannot be reached even if it takes hundreds, thousands, or perhaps even more, of years to reach it, alone signifies the strength of Hajuns. Depth of the throne, strength of the god. You can think of it that way. Naraka has just one Taiji. He is level 1 Taiji, so his throne has only one layer. And this layer, it is a completely eternal and unchanging layer, and all existence originated from it. The important point here is that Naraka and its throne scale even higher than singularity. The throne of Naraka is what created the singularity of Naraka. So here we are facing a literal infinite transcendence. Loop a closed cycle of transcendence that breaks any classification, even tier 0. Because the throne, as the creator of the singularity, the absolute origin, the singularity is what creates systems, and the throne is what created that singularity. This means the throne is not just a seat or a system. It is the first consciousness that chose to create a whole, a singularity, either to escape itself or to imprint nothingness within it. So the throne becomes that which transcends the transcendent over everything. If the singularity is a pyrrhon, then the creator of a pyrrhon is something that neither science nor logic has even named yet. That's why it's said that Naraka does not follow any concept of divinity or science at all. Second point, double qualitative superiority. We have ordinary existence, gods a drawing on a canvas. The singularity, Naraka. The hole in the canvas that makes existence deeper, the throne. The canvas itself that allowed the whole to exist, or the hand that pierced the canvas. And Naraka, the zero, sits above the throne, while the throne is the one that created the singularity. So we now have an endless ontological stack. Naraka transcends the throne. The throne creates the singularity. The singularity contains Naraka's avatar. So what we have here is continuous self-transcendence. The entity is creating that which it transcends, its own avatar in an infinite loop. Conclusion. Naraka is beyond metaphysical tiering system. In this state, we are not just beyond a pyrrhon, we are in a domain called the unconditioned absolute, completely beyond any tiering system altogether. So yeah, Naraka Mono Hadu God, the zero beyond power scaling wiki PSWA, scaled the unconditioned absolute or meta-apeiron. In part 2 of scaling Shinza bansho, we will scale Hadu God more powerful than Naraka, a Hado God who defeated Naraka, the creator of Shinza bansho, the creator of the first heaven, Avesta black and white, Mithra the true self.